Alright everyone, I want to welcome you all back to some more of the Great Ace Attorney 2. So, oh my gosh guys, so much has been going on in this trial, but I can definitely tell you we're all pretty much nearing the conclusion of it. So, without spoiling it guys, I'll let you see what it's about, and hopefully you all enjoy. So with that said, let's get to it. Alright guys, and we are back. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. Especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asmund's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means, Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asmund. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your Haiti proposal, shall we? There you go again, wasting another one. How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country? At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. Alright, who exactly was Mr. Asmund to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. And I'm gonna have to present two pieces of evidence to show what it is. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here. Let me see. No, it's not that one. Investor Mr. O.D. Asmund hereby enters into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. Notice to receive 30% of all remunerations. May only uphold this right on condition that both country boards are alive. Aha. Take that! Mr. Drebber, I have here the contract that you signed with Mr. Asmund. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. As it turns out, this contract actually helps to establish the real motive for the murder you committed. It does? Well, I never. What are you talking about? Read it again, you idiot. I'm not finished. In order to demonstrate what your motive really was, I need this contract and one other piece of evidence. What other evidence? Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence which, when cross-referenced with the contract, establishes a motive for the deed. Alright, no. The 10-year article, I believe. Take that! It's this newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago and every detail's been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing. Objection! But there's something significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common. Really? And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. O.D. Asmund. It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract? Oh, right, got you. Take that! What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature. A signature? The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago. by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Good lord, yes! They're identical! In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman.
Objection!
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about the article in his testimony. Grave robbing, you say? Yes. Exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grades to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. At the time, you were a student at the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life. Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article written by Mr. Asman. Enough! I love it when he does that. Stop this endless drivel about my life. What? Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber. Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. But they struggled on with their hypothesis anyway. We all did. Only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other, after all. Good gracious. Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of the university because of low gate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess talent for science than me? I'm so sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead, show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lacked talent? Ah, yeah, his trophy.
Take that!
Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. Is that... Hold on, let me try that again. Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science? What exactly is this trophy, Council? It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future. Good gracious! Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talent would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asmund was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. The truth is, finally, he's gonna fold. Haha. Fine. Clearly, this has run its course now. What? I admit it. All of it. What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago. No. Good Lord! Dr. Sith, do you realize what you're saying, woman? It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I had done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Sith, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in that note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? I admit nothing. At all. What? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No! Order! 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 Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zeeks? Yes. I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. I've heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrayne. Very true. That slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends? As the court has heard, Dr. Sith has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt. You mean? At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection? None, my lord. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrayne's innocence. Without further ado then, the adjudication. Ugh, it's always the J's, man. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss. I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Sid suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is further testimony.
Objection!
The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord. I beg your pardon? We demand one final testimony. What? You do realize I'm about to agitate in favor of your client, I presume. Why are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking? The truth. The whole truth. And a way to bring it all out in the open. Right. Yes, in hindsight. Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of a doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client, and to secure an acquittal. Obviously. But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court, to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Sid. Testimony from me? About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. Ha! In case this escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. As his lordship made it very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point in protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination.
Objection!
Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped. That's what you call it? What is your objection, Lord Van Zeeks? The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Don't be stupid. If there is more to this case than has yet to come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end. Yo, what? Lord Van Zeeks. This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Sith, you will testify for the court. Explain the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber. Very well. Alright, here we go. The waxwork plot. It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked inside his jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to address the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it. So I was right. The stage and the machine were all specially designed for the deception. So it seems, and all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You are a very shrewd boy. So kind of you to say. And what about the autopsy report then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage. That's all? That's a terrible corruption. Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you. You must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that testimony has clarified everything. There's no particular need for a cross-examination, I would say. No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Sid's face. I know. Freaking devious. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony. What is it about you Japanese that makes you all so doggedly persistent? Very well. If you so desire, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination. Yes, my lord. Let's get to it. I'll begin at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked inside his jacket. The actual body of the victim was indicated in the note's instructions was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. This part, I'm questioning.
Hold it!
When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this. Yes, the instructions to the engineer's note said something along the lines of fabricate some evidence to make it clear that the Harebrayne alone could have killed Asmin. So, you mean that was your doing? I fetched Harebrayne's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage, and took it with me, alone to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen. Alone, Doctor? I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then, I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest. And then you noted that in your fake autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death. Exactly. So, the actual cause of death was the trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop. My word. What is it, Mr. Sato? Something about Dr. Sid's last statement is playing on my mind, that's all. Yes, mine too. Dr. Sid. There's really no need to shout, I can hear you perfectly well. The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your formal testimony. Oh? Which part? What I want her to supplement her testimony with is what she did to the victim. How you stabbed Mr. Asmin in the chest, that part. Fine, if that's what you want, but there's really no need to point. No, we have to point. See? It's important we point. The prosecution concurs. Very well. You will supplement your testimony now, witness. You wish, my lord. I stood over the victim's corpse where it lay in the toppled cage and punched the screwdriver into the chest. Wait a second. Hold on. Hold on. I remember this photograph too. I want to see something. Aha, yep, there you go. Perfect.
Objection!
I've got a nasty feeling that this inconsistency points to an extremely uncomfortable truth. What on earth is the matter, counsel? Have you lost your tongue? I apologize, my lord. Dr. Sid, in that last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems to defy explanation. Out with it, my learned friend. There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that led to his death.
Objection!
The court has already examined that photograph in depth. There's nothing new we can learn from it.
Objection!
Yes, we have already considered it, that's true. But we know now the facts to be different. What do you mean? I believe we should let the defense explain. Where in this photograph would we see alleged inconsistency with the witness's statement? This one right here.
Take that!
Look closely at the bloodstain on the victim's chest. It clearly extends in a downwards direction towards the man's feet. And why is that significant, counsel? If the victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was set in motion, that's entirely expected. Ah, of course, no, that's not what happened. Exactly, my lord. Dr. Sith made it very clear in her testimony just now that the point at which she stole Professor Harebrayne's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen below the stage out of sight. From the shape of it, it's clear that the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop. And if the victim had really been stabbed whilst inside the birdcage in that position, the blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal, I can't even read that word, appearance we see in the picture is inconceivable. Given the victim's blood seeped vertically downwards from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Asman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Sith, your latest testimony was a total fabrication. I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified the contradiction. There's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under great misapprehension here. What? What sort of misapprehension? Dr. Sith? You claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant. And you claim that you altered a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie. Because the question of what the bloodstain really tells us has only one possible answer. If that is the case, what is it, man? Counsel, you clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Which part of Dr. Sid's story is shown to be a lie by the contradiction in her testimony? The stabbing of the victim. The answer is very simple if you consider the sequence of events. Sorry. If when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downwards as it did, we can be sure that the victim must have been either sitting or standing upright at the time. But as you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have fallen on its side when it fell beneath the stage. Yes, it would, which tells us that the victim must have been in that position of his own accord.
Objection!
That's impossible. The man was dead, remember? No, that is the misapprehension. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with a considerable force. But Mr. Asman didn't die in the fall. He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came round, he got to his feet to climb out of the cage. Just as Dr. Sith appeared. If the victim was in fact alive at that point in time, it changes everything. Mr. Odie Asman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Harebrayne. Nor was it the mastermind behind the stage trickery, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Sith. Order! 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 Can this possibly be true? Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him? You hoped that by admitting to be an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end, before you were accused of far worse crime. Cold-blooded murder. Oh, do shut up! You're so desperate now, you're making all this up, as if I would do something like that.
Objection!
I assure you, the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Nadahold has established the facts using evidence and logic alone. Ha! Logic? Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it. What? What do you mean? I thought it was obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Mr. Asman? Asman was involved in a number of criminal activities from coercion to theft to murder, but there's no known connection to Dr. Sith there. I'm rather relieved to say it does seem somewhat far-fetched. True, there is no obvious motive. Alright guys, I'm gonna end the video here for today. Thank you all for watching. Holy cow, we are reaching the conclusion of this trial. So if anything else guys, we'll continue on in the next one. Thank you all for watching.